What's good? Welcome in. This is NBA Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. I'm going to answer your questions coming up around the corner, but first, are you subscribed to us here at Chat Sports? If you're not, make sure you hit that red sub button right now. And are your notifications on? If you are subscribed, they should be. Therefore, anytime we go live, talking NBA, NFL, or college football, you will be notified. Or anytime we publish a video, it'll show up on your push notifications. How do you do it? It's very easy. Here are the steps right here to my right. You go to your settings app, you scroll down and tap YouTube, tap notifications, and then turn on allow notifications. Therefore, you'll be able to stay in the know with everything that we're doing here at Chat Sports. We start off this mailbag with this question coming in from Chua Lore. Should the Warriors go out and sign LaMarcus Aldridge? Chua, it's an interesting question. LaMarcus Aldridge still available on the NBA free agency market, and frankly, put up some pretty solid numbers with the Brooklyn Nets last year. About 13 points per game. Obviously, defensively, not the player that he once was, and offensively, there has been a drop-off in his game. You take a look at the numbers that he was able to produce last year for Brooklyn, a playoff team, nearly 13 points per, 5.5 rebounds, a block per night, 55% shooting. Obviously, you don't want him playing a ton of minutes, but the Warriors, in that front court, you have Kevon Looney as well as James Wiseman. Do you need a third backup big who can come in, add to the championship pedigree, add to the championship culture, and could that be LaMarcus Aldridge? If it's a cheap deal, then I wouldn't hate it, but I think he does go elsewhere because I think he'll be able to get more playing time with another squad. We go to this question from Pop Johnson. Players becoming free agents in 2023 for the Mavs to sign. You know who would be a really good player for Dallas to sign? Be Chris Middleton. I think Chris Middleton would be a really good player alongside Luka Doncic. Now, he is getting a little bit older, but still, let's not get crazy here. He has some really good basketball left in him, and he's been a good sidekick for Giannis. And that's the type of player who doesn't necessarily need the ball in his hands. I wouldn't say that he's a number one on a championship team. He wasn't 2 years ago with Milwaukee en route to the NBA championship. But if you need a bucket, you give him the rock, and he can kind of get his shot off from anywhere on the floor. So for the Mavericks, signing Chris Middleton, that'd be a pretty solid addition for them in 2023, and a good sidekick for Luka Doncic for about 2 to 4 years. How about this one coming in from Drake's Ghostwriter? That's a good username right there. What do you think about the potential of James Wiseman after watching him in the NBA Summer League? I think the potential is tantalizing. The potential is enormous. James Wiseman showed flashes of what he can become during his NBA Summer League stint, where he played 4 consecutive games, looked spry, looked athletic, and looked healthy. 10.5 points per game, 5.5 boards, 2 blocks per game as well. He was making an impact on both ends of the floor during 20 minutes of action. Now, the fouls were a little bit of an issue, and a lot of people have hit me up about that. How can we get, from a Warriors standpoint, James Wiseman to stop fouling? I don't really care about that. This is a guy who played 4 games at Memphis during his freshman year, played about half the season during his rookie campaign, didn't play at all in his sophomore campaign, and only played a couple of games in his rehabilitation process with the Santa Cruz Warriors, and then plays 4 games at the G League level. This guy just had to get his feet wet. This guy just had to get on the floor and play competitive 5-on-5 against different teams other than just his teammates, and he has just so much potential. Defensive switches, defensive rim protection, elbow, baseline J, look pretty comfortable shooting some three-pointers as well. Where I think he can be lethal with the Warriors alongside Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, is as a screen and roller, because defenses are going to have to get out to the three-point arc to guard that three-point shot. Keep in mind, Draymond can pass off that pick and roll as well. And then James Wiseman going to the hoop. If defenses go out to Steph or Klay on that three-point shot, he's going to be left vacant on the dash to the cup. That's where James Wiseman can really be utilized. Now, if you're a Warriors fan, I want you to grade how the Warriors have performed so far this offseason on a scale of A, B, C, D, or F. But either way, if it's not the Warriors, grade your team's offseason so far on that scale. Get those red pens out. Let's go to this question from Gavin Taylor. Do you foresee any moves on the horizon for the Denver Nuggets? Honestly, no. They've made a couple of trades, and in free agency, I was kind of confused by the DeAndre Jordan acquisition as him being the backup. I just would have brought back DeMarcus Cousins if you were trying to decide between the two. You get back Michael Porter Jr. healthy. You get back Jamal Murray healthy, and this is a team that can be in the mix between a 3 to 6 seed in the Western Conference. And that conference is going to be stacked this upcoming year. But the Nuggets do have the talent to compete in the West. 2-time reigning NBA MVP, and then a couple of really good players that I just talked about. King Littleman 33. Who do you think is going to win Most Improved Player this year? Most Improved Player. What if Ben Simmons develops a jump shot? Ben Simmons develops a jump shot after not having played it all last year, and he averages around 20 points per game, 10 dimes, and 8 rebounds. Could he win Most Improved Player? I think you have to put him in the running, especially if KD and Kyrie are not on that team where he has to be one of the go-to options. He could impress a lot of people, turn some heads, and be the Most Improved Player. I'm trying to think of some draft picks from 2 years ago who didn't necessarily play all that well, but it was a pretty good rookie draft class. So I'm going to go Ben Simmons, Most Improved Player next year. If you love the NBA, I want you to subscribe to the channel because our free agency, our NBA draft, and overall offseason coverage for the NBA has been spot on, and we're the spot for you. And as you subscribe, make sure you hit that bell icon, turn on those notifications so that you never, ever, ever miss a video. Move ahead in this mailbag with this question coming in from Jaden. Appreciate you, my guy. You reckon that Mac McClung should get a roster spot for the Warriors? He played really well. And it's funny, man, because the Lakers had him in the California Classic as well as in the G League last year where he was the G League Rookie of the Year, but they wanted to play younger players ahead of Mac McClung, acting like Mac McClung isn't a young player. He's going into year 2 as a professional. He goes to the Warriors and made some splash plays, had a couple of really nice performances for Golden State. I'd give him a 2-way contract. I'd give him a training camp invite to see what he can do. As a back end of the bench type, really good athlete who can finish around the rim despite his lack of size. Last Summer League game, hit a couple of threes. That was something that was missing from his game in the Summer League games that he did play. Had some really nice vision on some passes. He could play point guard at the NBA level. I'm not sure what his defensive upside is, but offensively, I'd like to see him enter that player development program in the Bay Area for the Warriors. Another one entering the equation from Marquise Robertson. What's up, Chase Sr., Tom Downey, Mitchell Renz, also Harrison Graham, and the rest of the Chat Sports crew? What's the latest Kyrie Irving news? And also, what about Donovan Mitchell to the Lakers? I don't think Donovan Mitchell to the Lakers is going to happen. I think if there is a big move for the Lakers, it's going to be Kyrie Irving. There's really nothing new on that front. It's come to somewhat of a standstill, and I think it's going to continue to be at that standstill. And things are going to continue to be stagnant here over the next couple of weeks because after the NBA Summer League, there is a dead period in the NBA offseason schedule. Why? Because the NBA playoffs roll into the NBA draft lottery, then it's the NBA draft, and then it's NBA free agency and the NBA Summer League. This is the time in the calendar schedule where execs, coaches, players, they just go away. They want to be away from their phones. They don't want to think about business or NBA transactions. And because of that, I'm not sure if a lot of conversations are going to happen. So as for when these superstar trades could happen, who the hell knows? And they could come at very random times, which is very on brand for the NBA because it's going to come when the NBA or NFL schedule is starting to really pick up, and then it's going to get overshadowed by the power that is the NFL. Larry Patches. Should the Sixers trade Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle? As a package together, I'm not sure how much value they have because Tobias Harris is getting paid a lot of money, north of $30 million. And frankly, I like Tobias Harris as a player. He's a good player, though, who's getting paid great player money. He can average 20 points per game for another team out there, shoot about 45% from the floor, 40% from three. There's value with guys like that, but he's just really expensive. And Matisse Thybulle, a former first-round pick who's also somewhat expensive, and there are big questions about whether or not he can be a knockdown three-point shooter. If he is able to hit consistent threes, he could be a problem in this league. He's already made it on the second team All-NBA defensive squad 2 years out of 3 years and back-to-back years, frankly. He's one of the best wing defenders in the NBA, but played off the floor in some playoff series throughout his NBA career because the three-point shot, he's been allergic to making it when the games actually count. And you look at the shooting numbers, they've been porous. They've been bad. So I'm not sure because of the financial figures what a team would be willing to give up for Tobias Harris and Matisse Thybulle. I mean, I'm thinking off the top of my head, like, can you package them for a player like Harrison Barnes, and does that make the Sixers better? Maybe, but I just don't think a team like Sacramento would be willing to take that on. Speaking of NBA free agency, as we've been talking about it throughout this mailbag, who do you think the best NBA free agent left is? Drop me a name or names in the comment section right now. We pivot to Luke Byrne. Which free agent guard could Dallas pick up? Colin Sexton, he's a restricted free agent. Dennis Schroeder, although I think that's unrealistic. Kim Pazzo is another option out there. Slim pickings right now for Dallas. And their offseason plan after a really impressive year. I love what Jason Kidd did. I love what Nico Harrison did. And tinkering with that roster. And the Kristaps Porzingis trade really did unleash Dallas as a basketball organization. But after losing Jalen Brunson, it seemed as though they didn't have any plan B. And right now, I'm not sure what that plan B is going to be and what it is. Robert Bruce, the real OG. Hi, Coop. Hey, Chase. Hey, Robert. Do you think the Celtics start Brogden and move Marcus Smart to the second team, and Horford backs up the Time Lord? I actually don't hate that starting lineup, Robert, of having both Horford and Robert Williams. They can be menacing on the defensive end of the floor. Long switchability. Robert Williams looked to be one of the best rim protectors in the NBA throughout the playoffs, and that was with him probably playing at about 70%, 80% because of that lingering knee issue. Now, he's had some knee problems and injury issues. There's no question about that. But when I think about bigs right now and the value of them, guys who can't shoot, a lot of them don't have value. But if I am trying to identify a big who does have value in today's shooting-happy NBA, I would look at Robert Williams as the prototype. Switching, defense, length, athleticism, good floor runner who has a really good basketball IQ and is an underrated passer. So I would actually start Horford and Robert Williams. As for what Ime Udoka is going to do with the starting point guard spot, is it going to be Brogdon off the bench? Is it going to be Marcus Smart? Your guess is as good as mine. I have no idea, Robert, what they're going to do. It's actually fascinating to see what Ime Udoka does do at those 1 and 2 spots and with that backup point guard. Steve Wilson, last question in this mailbag. Could the Celtics use a trade-level exception for a reunion with Kelly Olynyk? They have been in the market for some bigs throughout the offseason, and a reunion with Kelly Olynyk isn't a terrible idea. You already have the defense, as I talked about earlier, with Robert Williams and Al Horford. So if you want a shooting-happy big, you could go that route with Kelly Olynyk and use your trade-level exception there. And that would be a valuable resource to use at your disposal. Olynyk, pretty solid player for a playoff team. Obviously, a few years ago, I think it was against the Washington Wizards in that series against Bradley Beal and John Wall. Olynyk helped win that Game 7, I believe, because he went off from 3. This guy is a guy who you can play in a playoff series. Stretches the floor, knocks down some threes, is really just gritty, and that fits the mold for what Boston is looking for, both with the grit and the attitude, a familiar face, but also the on-court fit as well. Before we wrap up this mailbag, where are you watching from and where have you been watching from? We understand that here at Chat Sports, we're a global company. People are tuned in from everywhere, so use this as an opportunity to let us know where you're tuned in from.